Yeah, hi, hello. We're felling trees today. We're still working on clearing out the pasture here. We got all the easy stuff cleared out in the middle. Now we're working on the more problem trees, the ones that are leaning more towards the house. And, well, we're up close by the house here too. So we got a problem and I got to work with this. I've got a technique I've been working on, something my grandpa used to do a while back, of using a come-along pulley and a rope to put a good lean in the trees. Really, for the most part, these trees are beyond what I can do with wedges. They're just leaning too much for that. So that means I either got to go up them and take them down in sections, which I don't like climbing, or I can correct them with the rope if I get a good pull on them. Alrighty, so I've got a good stump over here. I'm going to go ahead and hook the come-along up to this stump and crank her away, but you got to hook it up first. That's where my second rope comes into play. This rope is only, I think, about a 460, maybe 480 pound strength, just a cheap poly rope. So it's not that strong. I'm going to make it stronger by wrapping it around a couple times here.
This one's pretty strong. Well, guys.
And I need this thing a little bit lower because they do have a tendency to start to creep up after I get it tied off. Alrighty. Now I'm just going to tie this off into, get it pulled nice and tight here. Tie it off into a square knot.
Wow, folks,
Alright, that's going to hold her together. Now I can hook up a come-along, and I'm just going to hook it right up to the rope here.
Okay, Daddy. You talking to me, Daddy?
All right.
Daddy, why do you talk to the camera?
Alrighty. Now that's a good hold. That shouldn't slip up. Doesn't look like it will. Perfect. Not quite.
Wow, folks! See me? Do they see me? Do they see me, Daddy?
No. Alright. The problem is this come-along's only got about 4.5, 5 feet of actual pullability to it. So I need this rope as absolute taut as can be before I start pulling on it.
Daddy, you ready?
No, not yet. Let go.
I'm ready to play.
Let go. And I've got a few tricks I'm going to show you on how to get even extra pulling on this rope. It's something I've done even to get this kind of leverage without the come-along too. An old school sailing technique.
Daddy, I didn't mean it.
So let me show you what that's up to. Be quiet, Esther. Don't holler, I mean. Just don't holler. No, not yet. You're jumping the gun.
Why?
Because you're cranking before we're supposed to crank it. Don't start cranking it yet. So here's a secret trick of mine. Before I do much else, I'm going to go ahead and make a bite on the rope. That's just double it over. And I'm going to tie a little overhand knot here so that I have a nice loop right there, like a handle. And I'm going to go about 3-4 feet up and do the same thing again. Alrighty. This is a super secret trick that will come into play later. Probably not actually required on these smaller trees. Well, not required on this tree at all. But sometimes this is a thing that I need to do. Let's go ahead and do one more in this because they always end up too close together. Alright, I got my loops tied in. we're going to crank this tree and get some pressure on her to pull it away from the house so I can chop her down.
Ready?
Don't crank it yet. I need all the cranking out there.
Really, what? You need all the cranking out there. What's it?
The rope slipped. All right. Now go ahead and tie her off.
What's tie you off?
It means tie it up in a way that it ain't gonna come loose on me. Which means I gotta do some more bite knots. Like that. All right. Now, let's crank her.
Okay, ready?
You crank it, Esther, all the way up. Now, the whole point of these loops, a couple purposes. One is I got a loop right up here closer to the come along. So, back up a second. So that if I crank this all the way up and there's no more cable to pull left, I will crank this thing all the way up to here. Then I will go ahead and I'll tie it off, tie this loop with the third rope, tie this loop off to the rope on the stump. Then I can hook the crank back up to the stump and up to the next loop and pull her down. I don't think this one's gonna need that because this booger is pulling over pretty easy. So this tree's got a fine lean to it now. Pretty darn easy to see that. It'll go right over that away, perfect. Go ahead and cut her down. Now, I did recently have to make a change to the way I notch my trees when I'm felling them here. I put out a few videos on cutting trees down, and I had a logger actually call me up and tell me that I was notching them all wrong. And what he said made sense, so I went and corrected my technique, and I even deleted the videos where I was showing a bad technique. So first off, I was cutting my notch too deep through the tree. They say you should only go about 25%, about a quarter of the way through the tree with my falling side notch. And that helps it to be controlled more on the fall. So that's the first part, don't cut too deep here. And the second part is that I was notching a little bit too low on the back for making my felling cut, and they want you to put your felling cut just a little bit higher so that there's kind of this step on the back that helps prevent the tree from slipping back out as it falls down. Alright, about a quarter of the way through, go ahead and notch it again just a little higher up. You know, on the real big trees, your notches end up so wide that with an axe, your notching position almost doesn't matter. It's going to be fairly dangerous either way, so just back out of there when it falls. But on these little ones, my notches are small enough that I can actually be pretty precise with it. she's about to go, splitting on the bottom, between that wind and the pull on the rope.